There's a video from a girl named Becky Fisher, and apparently she used to be larger outside of places like YouTube. I have never heard of this person before, but the video is called "Should You Force Your Kids to Go to Church?" Now, y'all probably already know what my perspective on this is, but let's go ahead and get into the video and see how things are. But first, the fan art section. The first one we have here is from Axo that has cream, and it's another pickle. It's another pickle. It's just so many pickles. The next one we have is from Tales of Atonement, and it's a bed with words I can't say. The last one is from Mish Monster. Holchan about to eat pickle Suris. Insert pickle pun here. Yeah, that's definitely not deep throating. Anyway. As always, everyone, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and get right into things. So now, Decasaurus really truly is in a pickle. Or the pickle's in you. One, the other, or both. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video over here.
Go to church. Should you force your kids to go to church? There's a $1 million question that Christian parents struggle with a lot. And if you're one of them...
The answer is no. The answer is no. You shouldn't force your kids to be the same religion as you.
Then you'll want to stick around and hear what one mother did about it and what happened as a result.
We're gonna do this.
Now, the question of whether you should force your children to go to church would take a couple of hours and then some to really explore all of the surrounding issues.
No, it wouldn't. Here, let's do it very easy. Let's do it very quickly. Also, hi, Jack and Quill. Should you make your kids go to church? Should anybody be forced into a religion that they themselves did not choose to be in? Can you truly choose to be in a religion at 5 or 6 years old? If you've answered no to both questions, then no, you shouldn't force your kids to go to church. Boy, howdy, that was easy.
And we don't have that kind of time here, so there's more that's not going to be said about it.
Actually, you have that kind of time, Gina. It is the internet. Not Gina. Becky. Sorry, crazy old ladies all look the same to me. Ma'am, you have the time. You are on the internet. You have the ability. All you have to do is take a moment of your time and be willing to explore the issue. To say you don't have the time is to pretend that you're not on the internet.
Then we can cover at this time. But if you're a Christian parent who's passionate about your walk with God and you want nothing more than to see your children walking with Jesus throughout their lives, then the obvious answer is going to be yes. Are you?
No, not necessarily. Not really. Do you think there's... It said, wow, racist. Yes, apparently. I am racist to both all old women and all gilf lovers out there. Do better, I guess.
4 month swoop.
If you're an old man, it's even worse. You just did. Society already doesn't like you. Was it old white woman? Ageism. That, you know what? If this channel is allowed to have a 10-minute long ableism arc, then it's allowed to have a 10-year long ageism arc. I need to be so virulent towards what I will one day become. Danny Kitty, thank you for resubscribing. Said, I mean, most of us, like you, just fine, old man.
You one of those parents? If so, leave a comment below and tell me what's going on in your home on this subject. And don't forget to hit the like button while you're at it and subscribe to my channel.
Or don't do any of that and instead like and subscribe to my channel because you're watching my video right now. And, I don't know, go to the comment section and tell me something random, like... What was the last Pokemon game you played?
But to be fair, there's so many issues that could underlie the reasons why they may not want to go to church. First of all, nobody wants to be forced to do anything, especially to do things you don't want to do. But if the child is younger, that's a part of your job as a parent to insist they do certain things. Like go to bed, for instance. They don't want to, but they have to. Sometimes you have to force your kids to take a bath, right? They don't like it, but it has to be done.
Right, but there's a difference between taking a bath and going to bed and going to church. If you don't go to bed, eventually you die. If you don't go to church, eventually you read a different book. That's very, very different, ma'am.
How about brushing their teeth? Or how about going to school and doing their homework? For some things, there's just no options.
Yeah, but there is an option with church.
And in the same way, as long as a child is in your home and going to church is a high priority for your family, then you get to call the shots as the parents, at least while they're young. There are some things that are not optional in your home, but as they get older, there may be...
Okay, but ma'am, when you say you get to call the shots as a parent, oh, I understand that parents are able to call the shots. I understand parents are able to exercise that authority. It's not about whether they're able to. It's about whether they
Shut
should.
up, Twitch, please.
See, Snake Jerry, Twitch will never shut up. Twitch will always be in your notifications. Twitch will be telling you about everything you should and shouldn't be doing till the end of time. Also, hi. Thank you for the resubscription. Agamotto, does Pokemon Snap count as a Pokemon game? No, but I'll allow it. Thank you for the hydrate, Jassa.
legitimate reasons why they may not like going. The biggest one might be your church just might plain be boring. But let's assume for a moment that it's a great place to be. What are some other reasons they may not want to go?
They don't have that religion, and they haven't been able to consent to a religion.
Well, I hate to bring it up, but is this just a mom thing, or is the dad in the home also committed to church and a relationship with the Lord? That makes a huge difference in whether the kids, especially the boys, want to go. If dad doesn't go, your battle as the mom is going to be very tough. Are you one of those moms who feels like you're bearing this burden all alone? If so, type yes or no in the comments below.
I swear to God, if there was one more actionable call out in this video, I'm going to scream. It is so fake. It is so fake. Also, we just started a hype train. Thank you for the 100 bits, Sarah Chikorita. Let's make this party hype. Said, what kind of shitty channel interaction? Hey, do you need to interact with this channel? Press no down below. Look, we'll just do the thing for you real quick. You need it apparently. That you need it so bad, so we'll just do that. There, we did it.
Another issue is whether or not the child is actually born again. Not all kids get saved when they're small, and if they're not born again by the time they're 10, 11, or 12, then all they can see is the religion side of going to church, and they don't have a relationship with the Lord, which makes it an unlikable place to be because...
So, ma'am, I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people who are Christians who can only see the religion side of going to church. Now, I'll admit there are actually some benefits to going to church. I'm an atheist, but I will 100% stand by the fact that church is a place where one can find community. It is very, very hard for a lot of people to socialize, especially as our world is getting more and more atomized. People are being more and more separated from one another. We are spending more and more time online and less time in communal spaces. So yeah, church is a place, technically, that you can find community. I will 100% agree with that. There are other aspects to church that are useful, besides it being a religious place. But there's the other side of that. Does it need to be? Does it need to be the place where you find that community? What kind of community are you finding when you're at church? What shared interests do y'all have? The only shared interest really is the religion there, and at the end of the day, if you want to find a Baptist that disagrees with another Baptist, don't look at a different Baptist church, just look at a different pew in the Baptist church. Instead, I'm going to offer a suggestion. If you're looking for community, and you have not found it, and you don't want to go to a church, then maybe, just maybe, go to a card shop, go pick up a Magic the Gathering deck, or a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, or a Pokemon deck. Hell, My Hero Academia has a card game now. Go play Weiss if you like a lot of different anime. It's certainly got the animes in it. Play Dungeons and Dragons. Go play some tabletop. Anything like that. Go to a Smash Brothers tournament. Go to a Mortal Kombat or a Street Fighter tournament. You can go to a card shop and you will find a huge, generally thriving community of people who are going to want to spend time with you and are going to want to get to know you. And here's the thing. Disagreement will actually be part of the conundrum there. If I sit down at a table and one person drops his mana crypt, everybody at the table is going to have a different idea of whether or not the mana crypt he just dropped is meant for a casual format. I'm not upset. Not upset at all. I'm just saying that the abrade aimed at the Mana Crypt was not personal, but it was deserved. As was the Vandal Blast. And the Return to Nature. I may have a problem with Mana Crypt, actually, come to think of it. I also don't think Soul Ring belongs in Commander, but that's just me. That's just me. I don't think Fast Mana belongs in the format. But, again, that's just me. And the fact that there's no new slivers. Jack and Quill, there are new slivers. We just got a sliver precon. Just literally a week ago, we got a bunch of new slivers. Don't pretend. We just got a lot of new slivers, Jack. I said, wait, what? Yeah, there's a sliver precon. With the sliver Grave Mother as the commander. Also a Marichick. Thank you for redeeming your points for an Ara. Now that I'm free of the nuke. Anyway, if community is what you're looking for, then I might suggest online gaming. I might suggest a card shop. I might suggest the local rollerblade arena. All things considered, I would suggest all kinds of things that are not church. Jack and Quill says, I'm too broke for this right now. You and me both. I had $43 in my PayPal, and then it was $6 because of an auto pull. And then it was $106 because Ravi made me say war words. And now there's money sitting in a pool for a subathon that I'm going to be doing soon. So, and there could be more money there if y'all, hit !Factor and go to Factor and get food from Factor because they're sponsoring the channel until the 26th of August. That's a thing you can do. That's a cool thing you can do. So then, is MTG Arena good? No, it is not. Magic Arena is garbage. Ninjestray, thank you for the community sub. We should get back to the video. We've gone on a tangent.
Because they can't see what's in it for themselves. It would be like you being invited to a birthday party, and you don't know absolutely anybody there except maybe the person who invited you.
So, if you go to a party and you don't know anybody there except the person who invited you, you know what you do? You go around and you invite, you introduce yourself to other people. You say hi.
It's a struggle to make small talk. There's basically no one to talk to, and how do you get excited about someone or something you don't even know? You can't wait to get out of there and go be with your friends. So the salvation of the child and their relationship, or the lack thereof, with the Lord makes a huge difference in whether or not they have any desire to go. If they love the Lord, it makes all the difference in the world. Do they know anybody their age at church? That's another question you can ask. Do they know any adults there besides you? And do they just consider those adults your friends or their friends? And what's the children's ministry like at your church? Is it just pure entertainment and games, or do they actually learn significant things about the Lord and the Bible and are actually being trained to spend time in His presence?
God, that's a scary image. That is a scary image. That just looks like brainwashing. I'm not trying to say you can't be Christian. You can be. It's okay to have a religion. Simple as that. But what's not okay is getting kids into it. I'm sorry. Any religion. I don't care. I do not think it's okay to indoctrinate children into a religion. I don't. I think that religion is one of those things that should be practiced by adults and should not be practiced by kids. Because when it's practiced by kids, it can be very hard for them to break themselves away from that later, and there's a lot of argument over whether or not that was even a choice they made consciously as they were growing up. I didn't get a choice in it, and I still have fucking nightmares about going to hell now. So, yeah, no. I'm just going to speak from my trauma and say, no, don't.
Of course, you as the parent need to be cultivating these things with your children in the home. If you're delegating everything to the church leaders and feeling like that's all you need to do and your job is done, then you got another thing coming, because your kids are going to get their signals from you. And if you don't care enough to mentor them in the faith and introduce them to the God that you claim to love, then what is it they're supposed to think? I could go on, but right now I want to share with you a very interesting post by a mother that came across my Facebook feed.
She says she can go on, but I'm looking at the time of this video. It's looking very almost like 10 minutes. I feel like maybe she's not going on about things. I think it's more that she's trying to fluff up time Just me.
She was dealing with this very issue about having to force her kids to go to church. I asked her if it was all right if I shared her testimony with you, and she said it was. Tawania Perkins wrote this. Last Thursday, my 10-year-old was mad at me. He was mad because I demanded he go to a revival service rather than a football meet. He was mad.
Well, considering that the kid wanted to go to football, and they were getting all the same community benefits from the football meet, and likely that football meet was something that they needed to go to for school extracurricular activities in general, that football meet was inarguably more important.
At me because I wasn't the cool mom. You see, the cool mom title isn't a trophy I hold, and I'm okay with that. I will be forever okay with that, because you see, football is not going to get my baby into heaven one day. Football is not going to help him fight what the enemy throws at him, and football isn't going to teach him what the Word of God will teach him.
Let me go ahead and translate this in the most condescending way possible. Football isn't going to get my baby into the imaginary place I think I'm going when I die. Football isn't going to help him with the imaginary enemy that I am afraid of, despite the fact that I've never heard him, saw him, touched him, never been spoken to by him, and I don't even know if he actually exists, but I was told by people that I think I can trust that he does. Football isn't going to teach him what the Word of God will teach him. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Won't teach you what Magic teaches you. Pokemon won't teach you what Call of Duty teaches you. That's a nothing statement. I don't care about this.
Now, don't take me as the mom who's against playing sports, because I'm not that mom. But I am the mom who hears what the Spirit of the Lord has to say.
No, ma'am, you can't hear the Spirit of the Lord. Not even the most devout Christians can hear the Spirit of the Lord. I'm sorry.
And when God tells me to do something, whether it's skipping a practice, a game, or a meet to take my boys to revival, that's what I'm going to do. Because I'm not after the cool mom trophy.
It has nothing to do with the cool mom trophy, ma'am. It has everything to do with the fact that you are ponderously over self-important. So this thing happens in terms of identity when it comes to some religions. Not all of them, and certainly not even all flavors of Christianity, but there are some flavors of Christianity I've noticed that have this weird quality to them. It's where you have a huge, major bit of importance on God, which is understandable. Your religion says that he is the end-all, be-all. He's the Alpha and Omega. It makes sense that you're going to put that kind of importance on your religion. I can understand that. But then this weird thing happens, where that importance that you've put on the deity is then filtered through you. You start operating as if you're the voice of that deity. And that scares me, because when you start feeling like you can personally hear that deity, not you revere it, you respect it, you have an inkling of what they want in your life, when you start feeling like you can personally hear the things they are telling you, my wonder is how easy is it to convince you to do abominable things? How easy is it for you to do something and then nobody to be able to argue against it? Because there's another aspect of this that you have to consider. It's not just that a person is hearing a deity that may or may not exist. It's the fact that they believe that this deity is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-important. Let me tackle this from a different perspective. Let me tackle this from, say, a polytheist perspective. And if I get this wrong, I know I've got a bunch of people in my chat and in my comments that are polytheists that will let me know if I get this wrong. But if you disagree with the Christian God, then you are disagreeing with what is objectively correct, and you go to hell. But in a lot of polytheistic circles, if you disagree with a god, then that's just a disagreement with somebody who may or may not be more informed than you, but it's not necessarily going to be the end-all, be-all. If you're worshiping Odin and you're at a bloat and you get a feeling that you need to leave and you choose to stay, there's not going to be some major repercussion in your afterlife because you did it. That's not an aspect of that religion. That's not a thing that you have to contend with or be worried about. It's not just worrying about people thinking that they can hear deity. It's worrying about people who think that that deity is always 100% correct and will punish them when they do things wrong, and also believing they hear it. When you wrap those two things up together, you get a dangerous package. The Asian Heathen says I was literally going to type a longer version. Yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a perspective that it's not the religion that's the problem. It's not the belief in the deity that's the problem. It's the belief in a deity that is so perfect that if you believe you can hear them, to go against them is tantamount to a flavor of suicide. God, the yandere schoolgirl. This is also coming from the experience of growing up in a very religious household, going to church, going to Pensacola Christian Academy, doing all of these things, and then as an adult, going and attending bloats with pagans, going to meetings, going to rituals, going to Midsummer, going to Yule, doing these things with people who do follow that religion, and getting a better understanding of how and why they operate. I don't have to do that for the Christian faith because I grew up with it. It was my faith when I was a kid. I said, hey, Midsummer. Midsummer was fun. I got to go for a single day. I couldn't go for too much more. But I appreciate going to those types of things, and I love spending time in those kind of places because the belief structure is not one that makes me feel like when I'm around everybody there, they're just secretly looking at me going, if he doesn't believe the things I believe, then one day he's going to burn. Whereas if I go to a Christian-only gathering, that's what's going to happen. If I say I'm an atheist at a bloke, I'm going to get a couple of sideways glances at best. If I say it at a church, then I'm probably going to get in a lot more trouble.
I'm after she brought everything to the feet of Jesus and drug them there as a trophy too. I believe God is raising up a generation that Satan understands the purpose of them, and he wants to kill them before they step into that purpose. Why do you think you see 10 and 11-year-olds committing suicide nowadays?
They've always done that. And it could also be that they're growing up in a world that doesn't have anything for them. Like, let's be honest, what kind of a world are we living in 2023? How dangerous of a world is this to live in for people who are trans, LGBTQ, people who are worried about what their health is going to be like when they're 10, 20, 30, 40? How many abusive parents are there in the world, and how many excuses are there for the things they are and do? I'm not saying that it's justified that 10 and 11-year-olds might be committing suicide. But let's go ahead and do a thing here real quick. Just out of curiosity. Let's suicide rates of children per year. Let's see here. The JAMA Network new research study, which was characteristics of participating circumstances of suicide among children aged 5 to 11, examined the National Violent Reporting System, revealed that suicide is the 8th leading cause of death among children aged 5 to 11. Childhood suicide risk factor includes mental health, prior suicidal behavior, trauma, peer, school, or family-related problems. Church is not going to help that kid's mental health, ma'am. In fact, it arguably will make it worse. Demographic data includes 134 child descendants, of which 75% were males and 59% were white individuals, with an average of 10.6. The majority of the suicides occurred in the child's home, and specifically in the child's bedroom. The methods of suicide used were a majority by hanging and suffocation. I don't need to look at the details past that. This is depressing. 30% of the victims had an identified mental health concern, and 78% were receiving mental health treatment for behavioral or mood disorders. The child victims often had a history of suicidal ideation or attempts. Some expressed it on the day of their death. Coincidentally, findings indicated that children who attempted suicide are up to 6 times more likely to attempt it in adolescence. Some suggested recommendations to address this include investigating more effective suicide risk detection, strengthening parent-child relationships as a protective factor, and then have robust mental health screenings and suicide risk assessment. Church ain't gonna do that. None of that is church. Not any of it.
And not just them, but teenagers now more than ever. I'm telling you right now, you better guard the hearts of your babies and teach them the Word of God, and most importantly, take them to the house of God. Now, this picture was taken by someone in our church while in revival that very night. Look at him.
That is a terrifying picture that is going to be burned into my retinas from now on, because that is a kid looking like abuse has happened. That kid is not happy. You should not be happy about this picture.
The Spirit of the Lord rests on you. Sometimes all you can do is weep with pure joy, and that's exactly what my 10-year-old has done.
What?
All he could do was raise his hands high and praise God for everything that he had done for him. That very night, after leaving the church, my son thanked me for demanding that he go see Jesus that night. I encourage you to take your babies to church and every chance you get, even if you have to skip everything that everyone else is doing, because God is faithful and he sees your faithfulness too.
That's not... Oh my God. The very night my son thanked me for demanding he go see Jesus. Ma'am, when I was 10 years old, I said similar things. When I was a 10-year-old kid, I thought that God was speaking to me all the time. In fact, I did a thing where when I was trying to speak with God, I would flip my Bible to a random chapter and shove my finger on a random verse. And whatever verse I landed on, that's what God was telling me to do. Ignoring the fact that I could do this a billion times in a day and it was basically telling me literally anything I wanted to hear. I've been this kid. I've been this kid before. 10, 20, 30 years from now, if this kid remembers that incident, I don't know if they're going to look at it the same way. I don't. When I was a kid, I had a friend named Trey. And this friend, I was the one white kid in my neighborhood. And if you've ever been to a black church, it is very, very different than the experience of going to a predominantly white church. It is a very, very different affair. This is not good or bad. I actually preferred the times I went to his church, honestly. They were a lot more fun, especially his Awana clubs were a lot more fun than mine. Mine were way more boring than the ones that I went to when I was with Trey. But we did a trade, basically. I went to his church a little bit, again, for a Awana Club, and then he went to my church for a little bit. Axo, thank you for redeeming your points for an OWO. He went to my church for a little bit. And there was this concept that they had in my church that was, however many people you can get saved, you'll get a crown when you go to heaven. And I was the type of kid who loved collecting Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon cards. So this type of collection aspect being added to my religion, it scratched an itch, and it shouldn't have, but it did. And I convinced this friend of mine that he had been the wrong kind of Christian. And he thanked me when we were done at our church service because he went, "Oh, I'm actually properly saved now. I understand. I'm good." And I felt really good about it. And I had the same experience of my 10-year-old friend going, "Thank you so much for doing this thing for me." I've been this kid. I've watched this kid exist when I was a kid. That is not something to be proud of.
Well, thank you for that testimony, Twania. It was powerful. Now, I understand it doesn't turn out this way for every parent and child every time that when you're facing this kind of struggle, but it can be a result. I can't encourage you enough to spend time on your knees before God and cry out to Him for your children to have life-changing encounters with the Lord Jesus Christ.
God, these images hurt my soul. Every single one of these images are scary as shit. It looks like a cult gathering.
Did you notice what Twania said? It was that the Spirit of the Lord told her to skip that practice and to take her sons to the revival. She was sensitive to the voice of God. Are you listening for His voice on how to raise your children, or are you just following the cultural norms?
So I have a question, ma'am. What do you do when you're having this advice for people who are not the right kind of Christian? Like, let's say that you're a Southern Baptist and this calling was being had by a Catholic. Now, I understand that's a bit of a non sequitur because the Catholic is likely not going to a revival because that is a more Protestant thing, but slot in your equivalents that you have here. Maybe instead of revival, you wanted to go to catechism. Hell if I know. would you still say that this was the right thing for the parents to do? Would you say this was the right thing? It says, isn't taking your parents to church still kind of the cultural norm for most of the U.S.? Yeah, it is. So, it is the cultural norm to take your kids to church. But it is also the cultural norm for people in church to pretend it's not the cultural norm. Reason being, a part of the Christian mythos that has to be adhered to as close to as possible is that the world is against you. The world is different than you, and you are supposed to be different from the world. This aspect of Christianity is worse in the more culty ones, like the Mormons and like Jehovah's Witnesses. But when you're talking about the cultural norms, we are a predominantly Christian cultural nation. We have been for decades, and we're going to continue being that for a while still, even though those numbers are declining. It is paramount for people who are of a religion that has aspects of it that involve being persecuted for the things you believe in, to pretend like the world is not largely on their side, to pretend like that is not the norm. They'll see a couple of vocal atheists and go, why are they allowed to do that? Why can't I say the same thing? Well, the atheist is probably saying, stop proselytizing to me, and the Christian is probably saying, you're going to burn. There's a difference in flavor.
I want to encourage you to pray over your children every single day. Anoint your child's room with oil. Anoint their bed with oil, the windows, the furniture, the pillows, and all their personal items. Pray in the...
Why? Why do you need to do random-ass rituals in your kids' rooms? Why does that matter? There was a girl that I dated for a number of years, way before I had my channel, and when we got to our house, our apartment in Marietta, she thoroughly believed that the apartment was some flavor of cursed. It was either the one in Marietta or the one up north in Cartersville years ago, one or the other or both. And she thought that there was some curse there somehow. I don't know how she got to that belief. But whenever she said "God damn," she would also say "Sorry, Father" afterwards. So, I mean, you tell me where we were. She asked her mom to come and spiritually anoint the house to get rid of the curse. Life was weirder back then. Life was stranger. I was also a pretty shitty person back then, but that's besides the point. So I don't know. I'm gonna click away from this once we've got to the point of shoving oil everywhere in your kid's room. That's not gonna give them a protection from evil spirits, ma'am. That's gonna give them acne. But Robbie says, Matthew 6:1, beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, or that you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Boy, weird that. Weird that. Kind of goes against the entire concept of much of church. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. This is... How much of this speaks to your childhood? How much of this is bringing up bad memories of yours? Because it's doing that for me. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, everyone, insert end video tagline here.